So here's the story. There was this young guy from Indonesia named Dio. He was 24, just graduated from art school, and landed an internship in a small town in Romania. The town was called Bracov. It was peaceful, surrounded by mountains, and filled with old buildings that looked like they came straight out of a fairy tale or a horror movie, depending on the time of day. During the day, it was beautiful, but at night, the vibe completely changed. Dim street lamps, sudden fog, and narrow alleys that made your skin crawl if you walked alone. Now Dio had a pretty unique hobby. He loved collecting antiques, not just for their look, but for the history and sometimes the spooky vibes that came with them. He believed that old objects had some kind of energy, like they carried a piece of the past with them. So every time he stumbled upon a flea market or antique shop, he got excited like a kid in a candy store. He had an eye for the weird and unusual, especially things that gave off that haunted feeling. One weekend, his local roommate Alex invited him to check out a Sunday-only antique market on the edge of town, near a pine forest. The market wasn't that big, but it had a crazy variety of stuff: old plates, broken clocks, cracked paintings, dusty books. Dio was in his element, weaving through stalls, his eyes scanning for something that stood out. Eventually, he reached a tiny booth, tucked away in a far corner. It was quiet, with barely anyone around. The vendor was an old woman dressed in black, sitting silently on a low wooden stool. Her table was covered with stranger and older items than anything else in the market, and that's where Dio saw it, a small wooden doll, no bigger than a baby's hand. Its shape was simple, hand-carved, but rough. The face was uneven, the smile crooked to the left, and the eyes bulged out like it was angry or scared. The wood on its face was darkened, like it had been burned or stained by something. Dio was instantly drawn to it. He picked up the doll. It was light, but oddly cold. There were strange markings carved under its feet, some kind of old script he didn't recognize. While he was inspecting it, the old woman suddenly spoke, her voice soft but clear. "That's not a toy. It's a protector of the home, but don't put it in your bedroom." Dio was a bit startled, but gave her a polite smile. In his head, he just thought, probably just a gimmick to make it seem mysterious and sell better. He bought it anyway. It was cheap, only €5. That night, back at his apartment, Dio placed the doll on top of a small shelf in the corner of his room. He didn't think much of it, just figured it would be a cool new piece in his collection. But the next morning, Dio was completely thrown off. When he woke up and reached for his phone on the desk, he saw the doll sitting right there, on his desk, staring at him, perfectly upright, facing his bed. Dio froze. He was 100% sure he put it on the shelf the night before. He wondered if maybe he'd moved it and forgotten, or if Alex had sneaked into his room to play a prank. But his room door had been locked from the inside, and Alex was still asleep in the next room. Nothing else in the room was out of place, just the doll. And the weirdest part, its crooked little smile looked slightly wider than the night before. Asterisk, Dio didn't tell anyone about what happened that morning. He just stared at the doll for a long moment, heart pounding. The way it sat so perfectly on the desk, with those unblinking wooden eyes, it made his skin crawl, but he tried to brush it off. "Maybe I sleepwalked," he muttered to himself. He had never sleepwalked in his life, but it was the only explanation that didn't sound completely insane. He picked up the doll, felt how cold it still was, and quietly put it back on the shelf. That night, he made sure to lock his door, double-check the windows, and even took a picture of the doll in its place on the shelf, just for his own peace of mind. He even said out loud, "Stay there, okay? I'm tired. Don't mess around." But of course, when he woke up the next day, the doll wasn't there. It was in the same place as before, on the desk this time, sitting on top of his laptop, like it wanted his attention. Dio's stomach dropped. He checked his phone, opened the photo from last night, and yep, there it was. Proof that the doll was on the shelf. Now he was really freaked out. He didn't want to tell Alex yet. Alex was cool and logical, the kind of guy who'd laugh and say something like, "You've been watching too many horror movies, bro." So Dio kept it to himself and decided, tonight, he was going to test it. He grabbed an empty glass jar, put the doll inside it, and sealed the lid tight. Then he placed the jar inside the wardrobe, locked it, and kept the key in his pocket. "Let's see you move now," he whispered nervously before going to sleep. He woke up around 3 a.m. because of a loud tap. like someone had knocked on wood. The room was dark. He sat up slowly, heart racing, ears sharp. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from inside the wardrobe. He held his breath. Another tap. Then a tiny scraping sound. He got up, legs trembling, and slowly opened the wardrobe. The jar was still there, but the doll was facing the other way now, and there was moisture on the inside of the glass, like breath. Dio stepped back. His mind raced. This isn't normal. This thing, it's not just wood. The next morning, he couldn't take it anymore. He told Alex everything. At first, Alex gave him that "you're nuts" face. But when Dio showed him the photos, the locked jar, and even the weird condensation, Alex went quiet. Then he said something that made Dio's blood run cold. My grandmother used to tell stories about guardian dolls like that, but she always said, if one starts moving on its own, it means it's looking for something or someone. Dio whispered, looking for what? Alex didn't answer right away. He just looked at the jar, frowning. We should go back to that market. But when they got there that Sunday, the booth was gone. No old woman, no table, not even a trace that it had ever been there. Just an empty patch of grass and a faint smell of something burning. Asterisk, Dio couldn't stop thinking about that missing booth. He and Alex searched every corner of the market, but the exact spot where he remembered the old woman's stall, it was just empty ground now. No table, no chair, not even footprints, just dry grass, cracked dirt, and that weird smell like something had been burned. The closer they stood to it, the stronger the scent got. Alex finally muttered, this isn't funny anymore. If the booth was never here, then who the hell was that old lady? Dio didn't answer. His head was spinning. That night, they both agreed to get the doll out of Dio's room. They wrapped it in an old t-shirt, stuffed it into a showbox, placed it in the living room, and stacked a few heavy books on top, just in case. Alex even set up his phone to record overnight, pointing the camera right at the box. And that night, the footage caused something. Dio woke up early the next morning. He went straight to the phone and started watching the recording. For the first couple of hours, it was all quiet, just the dark room and the faint hum of the fridge in the background. Then, at 4:43 a.m., the camera shook slightly, a soft scraping sound. The cloth covering the doll started to rise, slowly, carefully, on its own. Then, the doll stood up. Dio nearly dropped the phone. He called Alex in a panic, and they both rewatched it together, not saying a word. But what really froze them was the last few seconds of the video. Right before the phone suddenly shut off on its own, it captured one last image, a tall, shadowy figure behind the couch, towering, no face, long, wooden fingers, and in its hand, it held the doll. I'm leaving, Alex said, already stuffing clothes into a backpack. But Dio didn't move. His eyes were blank. Slowly, he sat down on the edge of the bed and whispered, she came last night. Alex froze. Who? Dio's voice cracked. The old lady. He said he woke up around 3 a.m. There was someone standing at the foot of his bed, an old woman in black, hunched over, with eyes that were all white. She didn't speak, just pointed to the wardrobe, and from inside the wardrobe, he heard whispering in a language he didn't know, but he understood one word clearly: return, return. What? Alex asked. Dio just shook his head. Then Alex noticed something even worse on Dio's wrist. There was a small scratch, a strange symbol, the same one carved into the bottom of the doll. That same day, they were looking for help. Alex remembered an old professor from the university who specialized in folklore and ancient rituals. When he saw the doll, the man turned pale. He said it wasn't a protector at all, it was a soul warden, used in remote villages to trap angry spirits inside wood. If someone removed the doll from its resting place, the spirit's guardian would come for it, and once it sees you, the professor said, it doesn't stop until you go with it. The only solution, return the doll to where it was found, or better yet, to wherever it spiritually belongs. But how could they do that when the market, the old woman, and everything else had vanished, and that night, the doll disappeared from the box? The next morning, they found it sitting neatly on Dio's pillow, facing the ceiling, with a new smile carved on its face, wider, sharper, and full of tiny wooden teeth.